I'm here with Camille Walker today, and Camille, I'm going to read a little bit about Camille, and then we're going to go into the interview. Camille is a life and business transformational strategist who works with mid-career entrepreneurs and solopreneurs to identify their unique genius and purpose and create a low-stress, profitable business or nonprofit organization. For solopreneurs who are seeking to work less, Camille helps to leverage their unique genius to create additional income streams. So Camille is one of our coaches. She's also a very good friend. I've known Camille for quite a while. And she focuses now on helping women get unstuck. From what she does with us is become unstuck to unstoppable. So we are thrilled to have you. Thank you for Camille for being a part of this interview.
I'm so grateful to be here, Terri. This is a cause close to my heart. You and Women's Nonprofit Alliance is, I just love being here and love this conversation we're going to have and how we got here.
Well, we love seeing your face and seeing and hearing your life experiences, and can't wait for you to share with those who are listening. So first of all, one thing that your bio did not mention, and that I happen to personally know, is that you were once a lawyer. So you're coming from being a lawyer to a transformational strategist. And I, been a little part of that journey, but not much, honestly. So can you tell everyone, how did that happen?
Yeah, that's an interesting journey. So, I'm still a lawyer. And God sort of called me out of law while I was in law, and I knew it. So I handled a lot of matters concerning what I call very, very sensitive matters. 3 Ds, if you could remember that. So death, I handled people's loss and death. I handled people's losses concerning jobs and if they had to restructure their debt. And then I handle things where people would get chronically ill and they'd have to navigate disability matters. So those 3 deadly Ds. And so it was a lot around loss and money. And so walking through that journey with them was a real sacred space. And I loved helping people that way. But when people would come out of the legal system and, everything squared away, what I found is there was still a lot of grief around money, because all of those are related to our livelihood, right? Our health, our employment, and then of course a loss through whether it be divorce or just the loss of a job or a loss of a business. And so there was a lot of money shame. There was a lot of blocks around money. And I would notice that. And I think to myself, God, I know you want us to walk in freedom. What are you saying to me? And that's where it started. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really think of, I'm going to be a transformational strategist and talk about money. But God started sending me women that were looking to start second careers around meaning, not around working really hard anymore. And as they came in, I noticed they too had a lot of trauma and drama around money. Mm-hmm. And I had to deal with that first before we could actually get them on track to start their new business. So that's where it all began. But here's the sneaky thing about what happened is I'm thinking, okay, I know a lot about business just because my parents are business owners. I grew up that way. So, I just know it. And so I thought that's easy enough. But what I didn't anticipate is I had my own drama and trauma around money. And I sort of didn't recognize it while I was practicing law. But when I stepped over into the transformational space, all of my beliefs around money they just came out. And I began a lot of resistance around going into this area. So I had to deal with it. When I grew up, so a lot of church hurt. I just want to, say there was a lot of church hurt around money. It wasn't popular to have money when I grew up. It wasn't popular to desire more. When I grew up, there were some people that just weren't happy about that. So I became very shameful about the desire to do more, to be more. to have more, to give, to live a certain way. And I didn't recognize that money shame until, again, later on when I'm stepping over into this space. So I had to deal with my own, I call my own money stuff. And as I did, I realized God was calling me. So this is an assignment. He's calling somebody else like me who has the same fears around it, the same blocks, to now help others. But
Yeah.
isn't that like God?
Isn't that like God? Right. And it's a lot of what we bring to the table as nonprofit leaders has to do with the shame or the, guilt or trauma or some of the things from our past, and money plays a big part of that. And like a lot of times I remember, I've talked to women and I've been there too, that are either have a poverty mentality or maybe even a, hyper prosperity mentality. And, it's just like there's these in church teachings on that can mess you up, honestly, if you're not under good teaching, and or if your parents have been a certain way. So you bring all that in as a nonprofit leader. You kind of bring all that into your nonprofit because you feel like it's yours. You feel like it's your nonprofit, it's your efforts. And I'm not speaking for everybody because I know my particular group knows that it's God's effort, but it is like you have that feeling of this is mine, and I know that it all depends on me. So, and then your mindset of either poverty, prosperity, whatever it is, and everything in between just can mess with you. So why do you think women struggle so much when it comes to funding the wonderful causes that each of ours do, and the cause that God gave them? Why do you think women struggle so much in funding?
Well, think about what your life has been like. If you step into the nonprofit, if you've worked, or if you haven't worked, what your parents were like and what money was like growing up. Was money easy to make? Was money hard? Did you have to earn your way? A lot of people feel like I earned every penny I have and I paid my own bills. And so that struggle is what you bring into money. So when I ask women, what's your relationship with money? Most people will say, well, it's pretty good, but it's good, but how's it showing up for you? Did you have to struggle? Is it hard to earn? Was it that you earned it and then you lost it? I mean, so relationship is very, very important. So that's where it began. And that's not a conscious thing, it's subconscious. And we never talk about that a lot, that there's a part of our mind, and it's like a piggy bank that has all your memories from when you were born.
Mm.
How you experienced money in your family, how you experienced it growing up in terms of what you thought, the beliefs that your parents had, or your religious figures, or your cousin, or whomever. All of those beliefs between the age of 0 and 7 are stored in your mind, and you consciously think you're making decisions about how you want to choices about money, but it comes from your subconscious. And about 95% of every decision, I mean, it's all there. And so whatever you look back on your history, if you've had trauma, if you've had drama, if you've had beliefs like money's not plentiful, it's hard to make, you have to struggle, don't be greedy if you ask for money because your parents told you we can't afford it, and you knew that you could barely, those are the beliefs that are running the show right now.
And you know what we bring when we bring those beliefs into our world, and bring it into the nonprofit world, it's we kind of predetermine in our minds, well, that person can't afford to give to me, or that I shouldn't ask that person. I've seen them, they give away, or they may give to, I know they give to all these others, they're not going to give to me. We make those predetermined we have those predetermined thoughts before we even give ourselves a chance, don't we?
We do, and it's our subconscious doing it. It tells us what we believe, not consciously. You might be saying, oh no, I'm going to ask for that $5,000. Subconsciously, if you have a value conflict, guess what? The value conflict wins. And so we don't realize that's all operating right now. And so we have to really go beneath the surface. Now, when the scripture talks about casting down strongholds. Those are strongholds because they've been there a very long time. And we haven't recognized them because we just haven't been given the opportunity. So think about it. When you're working for someone else, they tell you what you're worth. You might be able to negotiate a little bit, but you're going to be told you're worth $10,000 a year. That's what we're going to pay you. When you become whether it's nonprofit or profit, it's the same. You get to determine the value. You get to decide. And so your mind's going, what? Now we have to decide what we're going to ask for here. And it doesn't know what to do with that. So that's where you have to really get clear on what's there and acknowledge there is something there. And that's the first step. And most people they really think they don't have anything there. And so they don't feel like they have to go deeper to discover what that is. And I'm calling it what's in your piggy bank, right?
Mm.
Is it
Yeah.
pennies? Is it dollars? Is it stuff full of good memories about money? If it's good memories and you feel good about money itself, like holding money, if you feel good about yourself and know that you are worthy of what you're asking, then more than likely you're going to be fine. But if that's not the case, you have to go deeper to find out where are those things and heal those memories.
Yeah. And you talked about, did you say value conflict?
Yes,
That's
a
right.
value conflict. So a value conflict is, so you say that you value, like your value is, it's abundant, like life is abundant. I know it is abundant. At the same time, if you have a scarcity mindset, like I can't afford that, or that's too much to ask for, or I can't do that, because that's about scarcity. Anything that you lack is about scarcity. So you're projecting that value onto your prospect without your saying a word. That's what's interesting. You're not even saying a word. You're bringing, it's in your presence. And so that's why we don't realize, okay, the person said no, and we're going, okay, they said no. Well, did they really say no, or did they pick up on your energy and your attitude? Because a belief is silent. It's an attitude. It can be a distortion of an attitude about something related to money.
Mhm.
So if you don't deal with that conflict between subconsciously, no, you can't have that. Yes, I can. Guess which one wins? Scarcity wins, abundance gets canceled out. So that's why that's why I asked God for me. I was like, okay, the promises of God say this, right? It says, wealth and riches are in my house. Psalms 112 is a big one. There's others in Ecclesiastes about God saying we can have it, we can enjoy it. And yet, why don't we have what we're asking for? And we have to ask that question.
Especially when it's for such a good cause that God's put in your heart, and that God's already, that he started the ball rolling on this, and he's going to end up, doing his will is going to be done with or without us. We just away sometimes of not asking for that money to further that cause that he's called each one of us to. So it's, it just makes me sad to think about how much we've thwarted his plans to get this cause out there, and we've not allowed to do it because of the way we're thinking. So I know that you also, as a consultant, as a in your area of work that you do, you charge fees, and so a lot of this you had to learn yourself about your worth and how much you should charge in your for-profit world. And we all know that a nonprofit is just like a business. It's just it is just a not-for-profit business. But we were supposed to operate along some of the same principles, just with the heart for ministry. But as a consultant, so how do you get over the fear of asking for money for your services? How did you personally get over that fear?
Well, when I recognized I had the value conflicts going on, I actually started working with somebody to help me uncover what's going on with me, what's in my piggy bank that's causing this. And I reconciled those differences between what I wanted to charge versus what subconsciously wasn't in agreement. And so I did the internal work to figure out what were the biggest blocks that were really stopping me. And I went to work on how to really empower myself with a new way of being, like how I showed up, how I thought of myself, how I thought of money, how I thought of the transformation that I was bringing to the person's life. I had to learn all of that. So I went and I invested in myself, and I started what I call walking over my money rules. Like my money rules were, well, you don't pay people to figure out that kind of thing, right? You just go read a book. And I read a book and that didn't work. I understood it intellectually, but I still didn't get the transformation. So I had to break my money rules by hiring somebody to help me. And as she began to really open me up, I was like, oh my God, this is another world. I came out and I was like, I'm going to do this work too. This is incredible. Had to do that. I also had to check my skill set. So one of my blocks, my personal blocks, is around sales. I grew up in a family where my dad and my sister have the gift of gab. I'm an introvert. I hardly said a word. I always thought they talked too much and that they were salespeople. They made people laugh and so I had this preconceived notion about sales being sleazy, right? And so I had to break through that block. And when I broke through the block, what you have to do is you got to replace it with something. So the next step for me was to learn how to sell. So I hired a coach. I thought I got to break all these money rules. I've got to relearn what it really means to be in sales. And when I came away, I worked with a coach. I know it was God, because when he came into my experience, I'd ask God, I said, why isn't my business working? Okay, you asked me to do this. I get out of the boat, I cross over. And he said, you just need to learn to up level your skills. So he sends this person into my experience I don't even know, by the way, through an unbeliever. And this man looks at me and he said, Camille, I believe God is asking you to work with me. I'm like, how do you even know how do you know that? And he began to speak into my life, and I spent a year with him, and I learned that sales was about service. And when I started learning more principles about how to walk people through that conversation and how to hold a sacred space for them and how to really help them, even when there's objections, money objections, and how to diffuse their fears and their own conflict, I began to realize this is fun. Oh my God, because I'm going to help them transform their life. And if I allow them to walk away because of their money fears and their money drama, then they may not fulfill the call of God on their life.
Man, that's
So
so
I
good.
learned how to do it.
Yeah, it's so good because you're shifting from walking into someone about, let me show you what I can do for you, to let me hear about your needs and does this fit for your needs and can I help you? It's just a shift. It's not going, and we do that. I think I don't know what kind of, it's almost an ego thing that we think that, we're going in and we're going to do this on our own and we're going to convince them about this. And it's all God. It's only God. You got to hear what their need is. And that's the way God works. You got to serve them. You got to make space for their needs. Like you said, that was beautiful. Okay. So I know you worked with women who led nonprofits. A lot of your work is in the business realm, but you have worked with that. So what do you think is the most common lie women believe about fundraising?
That people don't have it to give. We assume we get into their, we get into their purse and their bank account, and we assume they don't have it based on whatever stories we've created. We project onto people that we have no idea. And I have a show and tell with this interview today, and I want to show everybody, this is my grandmother's Bible. And my grandmother was such a God, I mean, she loved the Lord, but she was the wife of a janitor. My grandfather worked for a aerospace company and he retired from there. She didn't have to work, but she kept envelopes in this Bible and she would save her money. And she would always say, I've always got money in here for what I need. And she would give money for various causes. I can remember she would sponsor a certain amount for Vacation Bible School. She would do all of these things. She would give away money for various causes. And so I think the lie is, if you look at that family, by the way, she lived in this cute little house. The yard was pristine, but she always had money. And I never could understand it either. God would just bless her some way. My grandfather got an extra job after he retired. And they also, it's funny, even now, the land she grew up on is still producing some fruit from that.
Wow.
And she's been gone a long time. So the biggest lie is, well, they don't have it. I hate to ask them. I don't want to put them out. What if she wasn't able to like have a cause to give from and have her little envelopes ready? So even if she had $25 or $50 or $100, you deprived her all these years of sowing her seed and reaping her harvest. And I'm telling you, she reaped her harvest, because when I got ready to go to college, I remember her saying, you know what, I'm so glad you're going to do this. You know, Daddy Woods and I didn't get to do this, and you're one of our first grandkids to get to do this. And here, and she hands me an envelope with $1,000 in it.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So, I mean, her testimony will live on, because I will continue to tell that, because how she did it, God just multiplied her seeds. And so you are depriving people of the opportunity to sow a seed and reap their harvest.
I love that. Well said. And what a great story, a great analogy. So I'm so glad you brought your show and tell today. One other thing that I think that a lie that the enemy tells us is that they're rejecting you or me when I do fundraising, and that the rejection is going to hurt, or it's going to be, it's going to be hard. And that is just not true. They are not rejecting you as a fundraiser. When you're out there, it may not be the right cause for them. It hopefully, I heard the term one time, bless and release. So if somebody says no to you, bless them and release them to go on and give where they should give. Maybe God's got them into a different place, but it's not personal. And
well, and it can feel that way, and it felt that way. So on the profit side, it felt that way in the beginning. Like when I even hired the sales coach, I was with him for a year, and he said, Camille, go fail forward until you get it right. Mm-hmm. And he would listen to my phone calls, and he said, here are the things that you didn't realize. So a sales call, or we call it a discovery call instead of sales. Mm-hmm. It's about the goal, and the goal is clarity, whether it's a yes or a no to move forward. So a lot of times I wasn't clear, and so it would confuse the mind of my prospect, and they'd say no. So a confused mind, and this is a writer downer, never buys.
I love it. Say that again.
A confused mind never buys.
Awesome.
Clarity is the goal. So what I do is I kept failing. I'd come back and go, Chris, oh my goodness, he's like, keep going. Here's what you did. Here's what you didn't do. You weren't listening. And so he also told me that, and this was my mind shift, people who are introverts make better salespeople because we listen twice as much as we speak. Yeah. So all of a sudden, I had to change my mind about how I felt about myself. So that whole lie about, okay, you're shy, you're an introvert, you wouldn't make a very good salesperson, I had to get rid of that sticky. And I had to own the powerful person that I am. God gave me the ability to listen, discern, to hear things that other people don't hear. So now I really consider myself wow, I'm really good at sales. And I'm still an introvert. So, the lie has to be replaced with the truth, and the power of who we are is what we show up as.
Yeah.
So you're seeing a new, renewed Camille, and the old Camille had to collapse. And I call this Camille Camille 2.0.
Well, it's a great Camille, and I liked what I saw of the old one, but I love what I'm seeing of the new one, and that's amazing. I think a lot of our nonprofit leaders just went, yes, when you said about the introvert, because they're feeling the same way, and I can't do this. I'm not built that way. I wasn't born with that ability, and that is just not true. And extroverts can also learn to be quiet and learn to listen, and that's a learned skill for them. It doesn't come as naturally as it does to introverts, can be learned. So the last question I have for you is, so what shift in thinking needs to take place for a nonprofit woman to truly embrace asking for funds? What is that mind shift?
I love that you asked me that, Terry. That's my favorite question now. So, um, when you think of money, think of how blessed we are, and blessed is empowerment, right? So the shift has to mean that money isn't a tool, right? It's just a tool, but it's a tool that can empower you. And instead of thinking of yourself as you are the nonprofit, they're two separate entities. So when you separate yourself from my business, even it doesn't matter whether it's profit or nonprofit. I am the CEO of my life and business. And because of that, I am a steward of what comes into that business and what goes out. So that separates Camille. It's not personal anymore. I have a responsibility to my shareholders. And for me, I have a CEO, which is, I say, Jesus, I have I call it a chief information officer. That's the Holy Spirit. And then I have God the Father. I'm responsible as a steward of these resources. So I'm the CEO that he's placed in on earth, because Jesus is not walking around anymore here. So I have to listen to my chief information officer, learn the skills that say I haven't learned concerning how to steward these resources, how to ask for more, expect more based on the vision that he's given me. So my vision has changed and enlarged. And that vision is based on, it's based on where all this came from. When he first told me, I want to make sure I get this scripture right. Where Luke 8, where remember, Jesus is going through the different villages, and the disciples are with him. And the Bible talks in those first 3 verses about there was some women, and they were traveling with Jesus. They were supporting him out of their own means. What does that mean? Moolah, money, right? So and the reason they were doing it is they were so grateful for what Jesus had done for them. He had delivered them, he had set them free, and they were like, hey, we're going with you, but we're going to be the money piece. And so think about that. They were funding Jesus' cause. So I am now the CEO of a company, and my goal is to make sure that I maximize my potential so that I can fund his kingdom and be one of his groupies. So I want to be one of those groupies hanging around Jesus and his causes. And we know what those are because your members actually are stewards of those causes.
Absolutely. And I want to be one of those groupies too. That's beautiful. It's a good way to end it. Just so thankful for you to be on our with our masterclass today to talk about this topic. And I think you said some things so beautifully that will bring a lot of realization. And now these women that are listening to this can go on and act and release some things. Realize that I don't have to hold on to those things. I don't have to believe the things I believed when I was growing up. I can change my mindset. I can make that shift, and I can be a better steward for what God has called me to do. So I appreciate you being here very much.
Thank you for having me, Terri. This is an honor.
Yeah. Well, all right. Thanks again. And we're going to go back to our masterclass. So We'll talk soon. Thanks, Camille.